want to take you to heaven, South Wales, where I grew up. And in my younger preaching days, which are just getting going, I would go around the valleys of South Wales preaching in the churches there. In 1904, in the valleys of South Wales, there was a revival. What? I've aged well. What did I say? 1904. No, I wasn't there then. It's like herding cats, isn't it? Honestly, do you know? We are the hope of the world. You know that, don't you? You know? So in 1904, and as has been so helpfully pointed out, I wasn't there then. In 1904, there was a revival in South Wales. And God moved in an extraordinary way. And 100,000 or so came to faith in a very short period of time. And they responded to that by building churches on almost every corner of small villages, a bit like Woodbridge. Big churches in small areas, and it's like that because of what happened in 1904. And I'd go, so there are loads of churches to preach in. I'd go around preaching at these different churches. Most of the time, the meeting was now held in a side room because the congregation was now too small to house the ginormous auditorium that they'd built. In fact, the main church sanctuary typically perhaps hadn't been used for 10 or 20 years. And in those little churches, there would be one or two people who could just about remember, in their living memory, the 1904 revival. And there would usually or typically be an elder statesman who at the end of the service that we'd had, a little side room around a Calagas stove, take me or Kerry and I or whoever's with me into a big sanctuary like this. Mothball smell. Clearly no one had really been in here or inhabited it for a decade or more. And as the old man would look around the huge auditorium, you could see in his eyes the memories, and he'd begin to talk about, he says, Simon, I remember when this place was ginormously full with people. And I remember when we'd raise the roof with our praise. And I remember when the preacher was preaching with such Holy Spirit fire that you could hear a pin drop. Everyone was hushed. And then 10s, 20s, 30s would come forward to give their life to Jesus. Some of them being baptized there and then in the clothes that they came to church in. And my mind is full of these amazing memories that come from a move of God where I grew up, places that I knew, touched families that I knew. And then suddenly reality clicks back in as a few elderly folk push through the door and make their way home. Now understand what that did for me. Understand what that does for us, because I think we're all in this. For me, it caused me to long for the day when churches would again be full. You understand that, couldn't you? And many of you, perhaps some of you older folk that have been at times in your church, when your church has been full to bursting, and you long with your heart for that day to come again when the church is full of praise to God. And I think we're all a bit like that because most weeks, for most of us, we go to a church where there are empty seats. Our church seats 700 people, so we're never full, surprisingly. So week by week as we come to the building to worship, we long for the day when those seats would be filled again. We come to a place like this and think, it's fantastic to see a full church. I wish our church was full. Some of you will have had that conversation over this weekend. There's nothing wrong with that, but it might not be altogether right. And the enemy so easily twists things that are good and true and twists them enough to distort them and make us ineffective. If I go back to Jesus and I think about his life and I think about what he was counting, what was he concerned about? When the crowds came, he fed them and would often send them away. Jesus was counting something, but it's not what we've ended up counting. You see, Jesus was counting the people that he could get sent. And we've ended up in a culture counting the people we can get seated. Following Jesus is about getting us sent, not getting more seated. And don't misunderstand me. I long for the day our church, your church, every church is full. But it will only happen because we started counting those we were sending and not those that we were trying to seat. Interestingly enough, as I sat right at the top yesterday evening listening to the end of Sandy Miller's address, and longing for the Spirit to come on the church, I was mindful of the context in which the Spirit comes. It was a people saying, I'm ready to go. Wait, and you will receive. Wait, ready to go. The Spirit came on a people where the movement was always out. That's why the Spirit came. And as we get filled and baptized and renewed and restored, if we want to see that well up in us day by day, week by week, month by month, it won't be because we sit in our churches. You see, I think that was one of the real lessons that we needed to learn in the charismatic renewal of the 80s, 90s, whenever that was, and I was alive in those days. We longed for God to pour out his Spirit, and it brought such fantastic change, didn't it? It released us in so many ways, and we see God heal, and we celebrate the gifts, and we understand the life of the Spirit in ways that perhaps we'd lost sight of previous to that. But the focus ended up being in on ourselves. And it didn't take us, I don't think, to where we believed it would. As the Spirit came, we expected hundreds and thousands to come to faith. But for as long as we stayed in our churches, that seemed less and less likely. I think there's a new lesson to learn. Not forgetting all that we're learning, and we have learnt over these last decades. But it's time to allow Jesus to get us sent. To work out what it means to live for him out there. What would it mean for your church to spend most of its resource, people, time, and energy on getting people sent, rather than most of its resource, time, people, energy, as it probably does at the moment, on getting people seated? I'm beginning to imagine a very different kind of church. I have a plea, and then we're going to pray. Please don't go away wanting to fix what's wrong in your church. There's lots wrong in your church, and mine. Don't go home to fix it. You'll be the vicar's nightmare. No, we learned it alive. We've got to do this, this, and this. We're doing it all wrong. No. All right. Right. So you won't do that, will you? Listen. Do you know what your church needs? It needs more people like Jesus. The best thing you can do for your church is to be like Jesus. Isn't that true? Yeah, don't try and fix your church. You can't fix your church. But you can be like Jesus. You can think about, who are the people I'm going to invest in? I'm not going to hide behind programs and events and courses and stuff. Who are the people I'm going to invest in? Who are the people that God has given me to disciple, whether they have faith yet or they have no faith? I'm going to be like Jesus where he's placed me. And I'm going to believe in those few people. And I'm going to pour my life into those few people, believing what Jesus said, that they can become like him, and knowing that as they become like him, they will in turn pour their lives into a few more. And slowly we will see us believing, really believing, that everyone can play, everyone can be part of this kingdom movement that Jesus is advancing in our day. And we can start getting people sent instead of worrying about who's got seated.